Week 34, Wednesday. A reading from the homilies attributed to Saint Macarius. Woe to the soul which has not Christ dwelling in it. As once God was angry with the Jews and gave Jerusalem over for a spectacle to its enemies, and as those who hated them ruled over them, and there was no longer there any feast or sacrifice, so, being angry with the soul for its transgression of his command, God handed it over to its enemies, who seduced it and utterly deformed it. Just as a house which has no master dwelling in it is dark, neglected, and despised, and is filled with dirt and filth, so a soul which does not have its Lord feasting in it with his angels is filled with the darkness of sin, the shame of passions, and every sort of disgrace. Alas for the street in which no one walks, in which the voice of man is not heard. It is a lurking place for wild beasts. Alas for the soul in which the Lord does not walk, and put to flight by his voice the spiritual beasts of wickedness. Alas for the house in which its master does not dwell. Alas for the land which has no farmer to till it. Alas for the ship which has been abandoned by its steersman. It is tossed about by the winds and waves of the ocean and perishes. Alas for the soul which does not have its true steersman, Christ, in it. It lives in the bitter darkness of the sea and is tossed by the waves of passions. It is buffeted by the wicked spirits as by winter tempests, and finally comes to destruction. Alas for the soul which is without Christ, to cultivate it, so that it will bring forth the fruits of the Spirit. When it is deserted, it becomes full of thorns and thistles, and finally its harvest is not one of fruit, but of destruction by fire. Alas for the soul which has not Christ for its Lord dwelling in it, for when it is deserted and filled with the stench of passions, it becomes a den of vice. When a farmer sets out to till the ground, he has to take proper tools and clothing for work in the fields. So when Christ, the heavenly King and the true husbandman, came to humanity, laid waste by sin, he clothed himself in a body and carried the cross as his implement and cultivated the deserted soul. He pulled up the thorns and thistles of evil spirits and tore up the weeds of sin. With fire he burnt up all the harvest of its sins. When thus he had tilled the ground of the soul with the wooden plough of his cross, he planted in it a lovely garden of the Spirit, a garden which brings forth for God as its master the sweetest and most delightful fruits of every sort.